Let's also tell you that the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, or Tetfund, says over 137 students sponsored abroad by the fund have absconded. The executive secretary of the fund, Sunny Echono, disclosed this when he appeared before the House of Representatives ad hoc committee investigating the alleged mismanagement of 2.3 trillion naira tertiary education tax by Tetfund. Echono says that the scholars who were sponsored by Tetfund for higher education outside of the country refused to return to the country after completing their program. He adds that Tetfund is working with stakeholders for stringent and effective measures to be taken against those who refused to return to the country for Nigerians to benefit from their expertise. The executive secretary says the fund may suspend foreign scholarships due to the exchange rate crisis. Now, education researcher Peter Ogudoro joins me now on this development. Mr. Ogudoro, welcome to NC Continental Prime. Thank you so much for joining me.
It's my pleasure to join.
137 Nigerian students absconding after being sponsored abroad. Now, if this allegation by Tetfund is true, what do you think that says particularly about the effects of the economy on the country's education system and this lack of desire to return to the country as well?
Well, a whole lot of factors are responsible for this. Of course, we know that for up to a decade now, Nigerians have lived under very terrible conditions. And so anyone who gets the opportunity to leave the shores of Nigeria finds it difficult to come back home. And of course, if you have had the privilege to live abroad in recent times, you know that even when you make the move to return home after your studies, your parents and all your friends who you talk to in Nigeria will discourage you from doing so, because everybody here is complaining of all the news you have given us this evening. Everything tells us about hardship and poverty all over the place. So the politicians haven't run Nigeria well, and the news that Nigerians who live abroad are getting is that this place is no longer habitable, and it doesn't make sense returning home. That's one side of the story. The other side is the fact that the program is not properly managed. The supervision level is very poor. And I also know that the recruitment process is flawed. Many of the people who are selected do not go through a proper selection method that enables the government to ensure that the people they give the opportunity to benefit from Tetfund are people who really are going abroad to learn how to solve Nigerian problems. Most of the time, you find that those who have, their brothers and sisters in the corridors of power, those who get selected to go to these places, not necessarily people who are passionate about solving Nigeria's problems. I think that we need to rework the selection methodology so that we can be sure that the people who are sending abroad with Nigeria's money are people who will be happy to come back after they have finished their studies.
Okay, so let's talk about stringent measures, because Tetfund says that it's working towards taking measures against students who refuse to return to the country after being sponsored for scholarships. What kind of measures do you think could possibly help us stop seeing this type of absconding? And when we look at it in terms of the measures being effective, because there's a situation with follow through and ensuring that we implement what is started, can these measures really be effective?
It's going to be difficult for them to achieve that. But what I know is that they are generally bonded. Bonded means that if you don't return, then you return the money that the government spent to take care of your education. But even if you do return the money, that was not the primary objective for which you were sent abroad. You were sent to go and acquire expertise and come back here to use it to improve the circumstances of the country. So we may have to tighten up the bonding approach, and also work within universities that we are sending these people to abroad, and make sure that we also send professors from Nigeria to go and monitor these young people who go abroad to study, so that we are sure that they are truly working in line with the objectives of Tetfund, and of course the objectives that we want to achieve as a country. At the moment, that doesn't look so. As a researcher in the industry, I know that some time ago I had the opportunity to look into this matter in England, and I did talk to the people who were benefiting from Tetfund, by way of using their money to go to school, and they did confirm to me that most of the time the people who give them the money don't come to look into what they are doing. I also know that sometimes what you find is that Nigerians who go abroad with this kind of money end up dropping the problem that they took abroad in terms of research topics, and then they are given fresh research topics by the host professors and countries. So at the end of the day, what you find is that when they finish their studies, they discover that they can't fit into the Nigerian environment. I'm also aware that the people they are returning to don't actually have a very good attitude to change. So when you finish, you discover that when you return home, the equipment is not there with which you are going to do your job. The professors you are going to meet on ground in Nigeria who are going to supervise your work are resistant to change, and they feel threatened by the expertise that you're bringing back home. So when you look at all of these challenges, everything tells you that it doesn't make sense coming back home. So if you are going to improve the system, I think that first and foremost, we need to improve the conditions that we put in place to welcome people who have gone abroad to study. This place is very hostile, I tell you.
All right, so there's another angle to this story, or we might say even another story that is part of this conversation, and that's the alleged mismanagement of 2.3 trillion naira tertiary education fund, or a tax as it would be. Could you see, is there likely a possible correlation between these two situations when it comes to the Tetfund, or are we seeing a situation that's more of a distraction from the main issue?
Well, you know, politicians say that's not the two are not don't have a relationship. The politicians most of the time when they need money, they remember that they have oversight functions and they look into those agencies of government that you know, we send a lot of money to, and they ask them to come and account for the money they have been getting. A lot of times, I also know that the end objective is not for them to really correct anything; it's for them to compel those agencies to also put money in their own private pocket. So I do not take these politicians very seriously.
And finally, before I let you go, now Tetfund is saying that it may have to suspend foreign scholarships due to the exchange rate crisis. I'd like to get your thoughts on that very quickly.
No, it won't make sense because we don't have enough manpower, you know, to be able to upgrade the quality of tertiary education we provide our young people. And in the absence of good quality higher education, you can't, effectively speaking, be talking about accelerating development, you know, in Nigeria. So that would be amount to cutting your nose to spite your face, and that definitely should not be contemplated. We haven't started at all when it comes to building the capacity we need to be able to solve our electricity problem, build the roads we need, fix our politics, fix our social problems. All those skills, you find them in Canada, in America, in Britain, and those kinds of countries. So you can't stop it. If you do, you'll be exacerbating Nigeria's local challenges.
All right, Peter Ogudoro, thank you so much for joining me on this conversation.
It's my pleasure.